Sometimes talk about like, oh, you're too dependent on your e-collar if your dog can't listen with it. My dog can listen without the e-collar, but she's an animal, and if she realizes over and over and over again that there's no consequence to her behavior, she's going to act like an animal, and she's going to do what feels right and what feels good for her.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hey.
Today we are going to kind of just talk about getting dogs back on track, you know, whether it's our personal dogs or dogs that we've trained in the past, and have worked with in the follow-ups. So, we offer that 1-year follow-up support with our board and train, to give the trainer or the clients kind of some room where once they finish the board and train, they go and live their lives and
live with their training. And
work on it.
Things go back to the way that they were, and we have to step in and see how we can continue to make things good. Yeah,
and I guess the reason for it is because it happens with us too. You know, our own personal dogs. This happens, you know, and that's why it's good to have that long of support after the board and train, because it happens in our own lives being a trainer.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd kind of talk about that, kind of what to look for, how to get them back on track, things like that. So you were saying Sunday's been kind of pushing back a little bit.
Dog Sunday, my beagle, has been just an absolute wild woman recently. She's been very pushy. When I tell her to do things, she's like, why? Very pushy with food. So she's kind of resorting back to when I first adopted her. And looking at that, it's because I haven't been consistent. I've been really busy with work, training other people's dogs all day. So I kind of just naturally repeat my no's, which I tell my clients never to do. And kind of just wasn't enforcing things with her for a while. So she thought, great, this is awesome.
Take full advantage.
And this was like 3 days of inconsistency.
And she's a beagle, so they've already are locked in with the stubbornness and, you know, kind of relentlessness to want to work. Yes. So you give, and her especially, I feel like, but, you know, you give her an inch and she'll
she
take
takes a mile.
Yep.
So I was really loose about things, and then I was realizing how frustrated I was with her and how much I was repeating commands. And then I said, we have to turn this around. So we did a training session last night, and I held her very accountable for everything. And now I'm really committed to bring my e-collar with me when I go, even to work, when I come home from work. All of those tiny little micro situations that she was winning, it doesn't seem that big of a deal that she rushes through the door without me, or goes off to smell when she's in a come command. But all of those accumulation of those little details was causing her to kind of spiral back to saying, fuck the rules.
Right. I do what I want.
Yes. So.
And it's so, with you saying you did a little training session yesterday with Justin, your husband, is he held accountable? Are you guys working together too? Because I know that's obviously a very important thing with, you know, me and Mal expecting a baby here in just a little bit. It's something that with working Sully, getting him kind of ready and cleaning up stuff as well, because that's something I've had 2 situations now where Sully has blown off my come command and chased after a deer, chased after a cat, and he's never done that. In the 4.5 years that I've had him, never has done that. And so of course now he chooses to
act out,
show this. But again, it's something like you were just saying that I've definitely over the last couple of years, I think just now am realizing, because we're getting him kind of geared up for having the baby here and all that, how much I have been loose with little things that, you know, with taking him out to go to the bathroom, you know, releasing him right away and all this stuff, that he's been able to get away with these small things. So it's not only have I found that I've needed to do it, obviously knowing and having the experience, I'm able to kind of pick up on it a little bit quicker and stuff.
You know how to get back on track pretty instantaneously.
Exactly.
It may take a couple of days to kind of reinforce those things, but I think naturally the day-to-day can get really busy for people, and just because we're trainers doesn't mean we're not guilty of slacking.
Absolutely not.
So sometimes, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And we'd be slacking.
And fortunately for us, we know how to clean it up pretty quick.
Yes.
It still takes time, but we can get on it a little bit easier, I feel like, than other clients and people with less experience. So like my wife, for example, is like the same way. Like she has Sully as experience for training, but that's it, So even with kind of getting back onto it and getting a little bit more picky with, again, preparing for the baby, where there's certain things that we didn't really see as an issue before. It was fine, where now we have to kind of get on them for. So it's all a whole new kind of ball game.
And you moved recently too.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that was a big
It's a
change
new neighborhood
in his life as well.
Right. So it's been kind of good. It's been really good, kind of fun to work with him again and work with Mallory and get her kind of just comfortable with it. It's something where I'm not going super crazy with things, but just a matter of being able to gain space
The basics,
for her. Yes, yeah, the basics. You're right. And so
That's all you need, really.
Exactly. And so it's just been here and there. We kind of practice it and just kind of pick random opportunities to just be like, hey, let's try an out command and stuff that. But yeah, so I don't know if that's the same way, if it's something that in your household, it's kind of just, you kind of work on it and then she's generalizes it, knows, or if it's something where, if Justin's been kind of working with that too or not. But
Justin hasn't.
Yeah.
Justin doesn't, we pretty much work opposite shifts.
Yeah.
So he just kind of let Sunday out. We've gone over the e-collar a million times. He just still isn't very interested in that, and I'm not going to make him do it.
Right.
Sunday's a lot pushier with him. She knows, all of the dogs know that he's the softie.
Yeah.
So they do push on him, and he doesn't care.
Right.
He doesn't mind. It's nothing that he can't handle. It's nothing egregious. So I kind of let it go. But when we take Sunday for a walk together, like we went to Edgewater and she was off leash, and he was like, wow, she is so well behaved.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's because of me.
Yeah, you definitely take credit for that one.
Yes.
But that's also like a good example though too, where the family dynamics are always different, where I want Mallory to be able to command Sully and have that generalization, and again, not super strict, doesn't have to be, but just as long as he listens to her, so that way if I'm not there or whatever, she's with the baby, she can do that, with family dynamic of like, it's not an issue for Justin. And it's like, and I'm sure like with Sunday stuff, maybe just being a trainer, you're more sensitive to those things where no one else would be like, oh, Sunday's being a bad dog or anything like that, but it's just, you're noticing it. So you're like, okay, let's clean it up here and there, but for him, it's not important to do it. So it's just, it is what it is.
It's like her impulsiveness for food. Like we always feed her. She sits outside while we get it ready. And then she's like so excited that she's like shaking. And my rule is that she's not allowed to jump on the doors because she makes my sliding glass door all muddy. And every time Justin feeds her, she's like, he ain't going to do anything. And she jumps up on that door. And when I feed her, she's like,
yep, she's waiting.
I can't. So it's like different relationship, but it bothered me over the course of the last week that Sunday's training was looking a little sloppy.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's, again, it's kind of the theme of what we're talking about today is just, the signs to look for and how to kind of get back on it. So that's just something where it's just like, if you notice it starting to bother you, do something about it sooner than later, you know, because it's something where.
Don't put it off.
Yeah. Because it's only going to spiral, and just like Sunday, just like Sully, it's like if you give them an inch, they're going to take full advantage of it, Yeah. So it's something that was with Sully going after these deer. It was a complete shock, but Mallory said too. He started running, he stopped looked back at her because she said no, but then like had that second of like, I know I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
But you ain't gonna do
There's
shit.
no consequences.
So yep.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like then he took off again, like committed to it. So and that was the same thing with the cat as well. Luckily I was there that time, but but he still blew me off, which was that was like the big surprise too. But you know, that was the clear sign of like, okay, you know, big things need to change right away, and then we can kind of work on the smaller detail things as we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've been, but it's a weird thing too, and I don't know if this correlates to kind of what you're working with Sunday, but it's very hard after a situation like that. A little bit easier for me, but still, you know, still makes me nervous, obviously, because even yesterday pulling in from like into my driveway, I saw another deer back there, you know? So I'm like, okay, clearly they're going to be back there. But, so you have that concern of, okay, well now I don't want him to be off leash at all, because now I don't trust him. You know, you have to still have that little bit of trust where I've been more picky with, you know, just going over the big things of collars on, collars charged, collars on a higher level, you know, if he's going to be off leash. Still, if he's on leash, I'm putting it on, and I've been putting him on leash to go walk him out in the yard and stuff like that more often, because it's not a fully fenced in yard. So I've been starting to kind of manage that a little bit more, and just when he's on leash, being really nitpicky if he's blowing me off or whatever, right? But still having that trust and letting him know, because I think it is detrimental to some relationships and some training where you do that hard switch where it's like, okay, you ran off once, never allowed off leash again, you know?
You can transition back into the way things were before pretty easily if you've had success with that.
Yeah.
And then again, like making sure the collar is on and charge. How many clients come to us and they're like, oh, the collar was dead or it wasn't on or I hadn't been good about putting it on. It's like, do a hard reset for yourself and make sure that your habits are good, so then you can transfer those good habits back to your dog.
Right. And that's something where, you know, for me, that's what I've had to do, because I was the same way. I was bad with charging it. You know, I didn't really put it on him when he was in the house, you know, and stuff.
Same.
So I've started to put the charger, you know, right in my bedroom where I have my phone charger. I plug my phone in every night. You know, that's the routine, you know,
make it easier for yourself.
So I've started doing the same thing with Sully's collar and stuff. It's right there when I plug my phone in, I plug his collar and remote in. And so I've just been much more consistent with it. So that's a good advice is, you know, hard reset, you know, because I've had to do that for me as well.
It's like people can sometimes talk about like, oh, you're too dependent on your e-collar if your dog can't listen with it. My dog can listen without the e-collar, but she is an animal. And if she realizes over and over and over again that there's no consequence to her behavior, she's going to act like an animal and she's going to do what feels right and what feels good for her. So chasing a rabbit, smelling the food on the floor, eating things that she shouldn't be eating. Like she loves that stuff.
Right.
And it's not going to stop unless I'm able to address it.
Yep.
So it's not dependency on the e-collar. It's just having a clear set of expectations that your dog knows yes and no, and you can kind of set up your life from there.
Right. And so it's been a learning curve for me as well, because again, it's something where it's like I've worked with people that are expecting or people that have just had a baby before and like their dogs and everything, but it is different when it's your dog too, you know, because you're on it 24/7. You are forced to do the things that you hold your clients accountable to, you know? So it's been, again, kind of fun, you know, it's been
back into it.
Yeah. It's been kind of fun to work with it and stuff, just because it's the excitement and everything. But it is something where it comes to the consistency, you know, and
how much of a habit you're making things.
Right.
Like one area that I see a lot, like when people are particularly doing the walk, that like I even had a client today that came in and she's like, well, he kind of just sniffs whenever he wants to. And I was like, but we're not enforcing that. When we're in the come command, we mean walk with us and don't engage. So we talked about how to make it clearer to the dog where any opportunity that he did leave that command, she was allowing that and allowing that and allowing that. And then pretty soon there was no standard.
Right.
And he was like, sweet, I can smell everything all the time whenever I want to. And it's not that we're anti-sniff, of course.
Yeah.
I allow a lot of free time, allow a lot of sniffing time on my walks, but just not exclusively when I say come.
Exactly. And I think another big one too is the line that they push, because we do, we don't really require the perfect heel and all that stuff. We do get a little wiggle room working up in that front, but it's something that's something, because we do that, I feel like a lot of dogs learn to take advantage of it with their owners, where they're walking too far in front, they get corrected, they come back for a second, and then like 5 feet later, they're right back.
It starts again, and the whole walk is just frustration because your level's not motivating enough, or your timing's off, or the dog is just not clear on what the positioning is. Right. Because we're changing it all the time. So it's like, get clear with what you're consistently correcting for and correct for it, and we should see a huge difference.
And that's something too, coming back to what you were saying, is with like, kind of the resetting is, if you're expecting the dog to kind of like take the step backs and reset, like remind yourself to do it for yourself as well. Go back to the basics, go back to like, because if the dogs learn to push those limits or push those boundaries, it's because you've gotten loose on it, right? So it's something
they
where
know they can.
Yes. So it's something where it's like, you kind of have to like reset yourself to reset the dog,
And it's like, again, like in the small details, like I let Sunday break a bed stay and she had no consequences. So I'm not correcting that, or I wasn't for a little bit just because I didn't have the collar on. I had my excuses that the clients always say. So I get it. But her not listening to the bed command turned into her not listening on the walk, which turned to her not listening in the house, which turned to her having less freedom on the walk because she needed to kind of take a step back for a little bit. So it's like the little things that we instruct people to do, like correct for these little minimal things, is so the dog gets practice believing your ability to follow through with the correction. Right. And if you're constantly allowing them to break command or go out of the come command, they're like, I don't have to listen to this person. And that's where a lot of the confusion, I feel like, comes to, like with like the pushing the boundaries of walking too far ahead and stuff, is because there's a confusion because of the inconsistency of correcting, or like you were saying, like there's the inconsistency of when they're getting corrected. The timing of the correction is always a big one, or the levels, is probably the most common. But that's something too, where again, just taking those step backs, reminding yourself, okay, where's the problem really lie, and practice with the most common, which is probably levels. Go up on your level, see if that fixes it. If that's not fixing it, and you're freaking out or whatever, you're getting stressed and something just isn't, you're not seeing any improvement, then it comes to the timing, and then if it's that's still kind of struggling or whatever, then you need to reach out to your trainer, and just get some second opinion or whatever, extra eyes on it, because can feel like overwhelming, especially if you have an incident or your dog is a behavioral dog. I had an email from a client recently that the dog killed it with us, and she sent me this email saying like things have not gone great, and she's out of state. So she mentioned a laundry list of things that he was doing. So that can feel super overwhelming if we're looking at the big picture and we're saying like, okay, I have to fix this and this and this. And how we get back on track is isolate one thing at a time. Right. So, for example, she mentioned that he's incapable of walking because he's so anxious. And I'd say start there. What is he doing on the walk that is breaking command? How can we start to navigate that? How can we start to consistently correct him on our walks? And then look at the other little things and start correcting him for those. Right. So we don't do everything all at once, and then everybody's like frazzled and confused. It's like picking away at one or two things and checking the boxes.
Yep. Yeah. Again, if you want to make it easy for your dog, make it easy for yourself.
Yes.
Do one thing at a time. And then even if the one thing, then break that thing down into little things, like set expectations that are actually achievable for yourself and for your dog. And you will see so much more success so much quicker,
And you don't have to there's a mindset then when we fall off of our training for a little bit that we have to start all over.
Yeah.
I got a text from a client that had issues with cats and the dog went after a cat and she's like, we have to start all over from the top. Say you don't.
No.
Put the muzzle on and treat things like they were previously.
Yep.
So we can not separate the cat and the dog and make the dog or the cats more novelty.
Right.
You just have to be able to work through these things and get your dog back on track because they're a lot smarter than you think that they are.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more capable than you think they are.
Exactly. And it's something, I feel like in the follow-ups that I have months after the board and train and all these things, most of the time it's because the owners kind of forget what the rules are. They get kind of, again, more confused with what was the line, when do I give the correction, what's the actual standard, the criteria or whatever. And the dog's just happy to be getting away with it, So it's something where they either they kind of forget the lines or they get blurred on the lines and stuff. And so the timing of corrections kind of go off the rails, or they get scared to correct because they're like, I forget what it is, or I forget
the order
where
of things. Yeah.
And again, that's where it's just if you find yourself in those situations, seek help, reach out to the trainer, and just ask at least, even if you can't get in for a follow-up, at least ask,
Getting back on track.
Yeah. Because it is so important, it's, and I think it's also kind of upsetting because, again, just personally, even with Sully, him chasing after that deer, it made me very upset because it was just something where I was like,
you lost control in the moment.
Yeah. And so it's something that having that, it was kind of like an oh shit moment where I realized I was like, I need to do better, because he's my responsibility. If something were to happen to him or something were to happen to something else, someone or another dog or something, that would be my responsibility, Yes. So it's something that from that point, it is that harsh reality of, okay, I need to do better too, but.
And recognizing how to carry out everything. And like my mom always says that the universe gives you warnings. And you got to listen to those warnings and adjust your behavior. So your warning could have been him taking off.
Yep.
And then you did things in order to make that better by making sure your collar's on, utilizing the correction. And I don't think it's going to be hard to get him back on track at all.
No.
I think he just needs the direction. And sometimes naturally we loosen up.
Yep.
Especially all you have going on right now.
Right.
So...
Right. So yeah, and that's and you're absolutely right. That was kind of the wake up call that I needed, because it was okay, we need to start getting him ready for the baby and all that stuff. But that was
now.
the hey, yep, exactly right. That was the hey, we need to do something now.
Because he was like, fuck off.
Yep. He's like, you're going to be preoccupied here in a little bit, so I'm really going to be able to do whatever I want. So that's where I needed to kind of make my point clear, that he still has to listen. Yes. There's still rules for him too. If you're listening to this, Sully, remember that.
Straighten up.
Yeah, straighten up. But yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to think of other tips that I've been kind of working on or thinking of. But with going kind of over what I've been working on with the out command, whether that's in the kitchen or the nursery, I've kind of set boundaries with this.
Yeah.
And I again been kind of loose with it, where as we have been painting the nursery and getting it all set up and all that stuff, Sully has been coming in and every once in a while and just checking it out too.
Room?
Right.
This is
and
cool. Is it for me?
But I've been starting to kind of set boundaries in going in there because obviously, we're going to have the baby on the ground and changing the like diaper and all that stuff,
Just
and
baby things.
just moving around with him in there.
Or he could accidentally step on him, even if things aren't intentional.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, or
spooked.
I can trip over him, or what, like, it's like, those are valid concerns. So I just want to know that it's like, as I'm moving in my nursery, I don't have to worry about what I'm tripping over,
him,
Yeah. So
tell him to F off.
Exactly. So that's one thing. And then like, I've been kind of using the kitchen as like another way to kind of capitalize on it too. Because, again, just something where it was never a huge annoyance for me or Mallory when we were doing the dishes or cooking or something, that he would always be there, and every once in a while it'd be like, hey, move out of the way or whatever, I just kind of like push him out of the way or tell him to move, and he moves. But it's something where it's like, again, now that we have the baby, or we're going to be running around filling up bottles half awake, in the middle of the night, I don't want him in my way, so it's something that's another place where I've been able to kind of double down on my repetition, because I've been using it in a place where I will be reinforcing it once the baby comes too.
And it's a life-changing event, like having a child or bringing a child into this world is naturally already going to be super stressful. So like you said, like leading up to it, you wanted to make sure Sully is in a rock solid place.
Right.
So you have that ability to make things less stressful. So it's not the baby and then the baby and Sully on top of each other, which is extra stressful.
Exactly.
And naturally it is hard. Like when people have children and they come to us and they're like, I'm so overwhelmed. It's about learning how to help them really navigate the dog in their day-to-day life. Rather than doing like 1,000 reps of something and living with their training and having the dog fit into their lives. Rather than the dog being like a second baby.
Exactly. And that's really what it is. It's just, I just like, he's old enough now where I shouldn't have to be like overly concerned with what he's doing or where he's at or whatever, or how he's even behaving on a walk or something, like it's just, that will not be a priority. So I don't want it to have to be, what I mean? I don't want it to like have to share the attention from him into like this newborn baby when it comes in.
Navigating things.
Exactly. So that's where, again, for me personally, somewhere where I found that I needed to kind of like pick up on my training again. Yeah. But it could just be as simple as just like, you get kind of annoyed and you're just like, hey, Sunday, get your shit together. Like
she's like,
right.
Oh, okay.
So whether you're kind of forced in my situation or just feel like you want to clean up in your situation, these are all kind of good areas or good signs to kind of be like, okay, let's change something different.
Getting back on track isn't as difficult as you think it is. And, if you've trained with us, always feel free to reach out.
Yes.
And we can get you back on track or help with some advice, a follow-up lesson. That's what we're here for.
And I hope I hope this makes it even more clear, because I know we've mentioned it, pretty often, but that like, there is no judgment on our end. Like, again, like we're literally admitting that, we're not perfect either. So it's something that if you find that you're struggling or even have, again, simple questions, at least reach out, at least ask us. And if it's something where we feel like, hey, let's come in and check it out or whatever, if you're out of state, make a Zoom call or something, then we can do that. We have in the past and we can do that, but it's something where, well, I guess you can, but yeah, it's something where, you're not alone. And if you're going through something, we've most likely seen it before. So I feel like that's another problem where it's like,
it's not a surprise.
Yeah. People, even on drop-offs for their board and trains, how many people have been like, man, I really hope you can help. This is just like the craziest dog I've ever seen. I'm like, I've got 5 in the crates right here with the same thing, like.
And they call and they're like, I thought you were calling me to tell me to come pick the dog up.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
No.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to just call on the first day and let you know, because it is hard. It's stressful for the owners to leave their dogs for 4 weeks and stuff. We do try to give you that peace of mind.
I just had a client that was just a huge success story. Hair flip.
No big
really
deal.
Good. And she was like, you must have thought I was absolutely crazy on drop off because we were so overwhelmed and her behaviors weren't even that bad. And she's like, sometimes I look at your Instagram and see like the serious dogs you work with. She's like, you probably think I'm an idiot. I'm like, I don't at all.
Not at all.
Your behaviors, even if they aren't aggressive or attacking or biting, are valid.
Yeah.
And your issues with your dogs are valid. If they bother you, then we need to find a solution. And if we don't know the solution, we can reach out to somebody that does. So it doesn't matter if your dog is a puppy and just play biting or your dog is trying to maul everybody.
Right.
We can help you come up with solutions that are going to work.
Yep. Again, whether it's force, whether it's super aggressive, kind of like you need to get your
Like
shit together.
Shit hits the fan,
yeah,
and then you're
like,
cleaning up all the shit that after the fan.
Exactly. Like those are some situations. Other people just come in because hey, they got a puppy and it's annoying and they don't know what to do with it, and it's just kind of, throwing them through a loop. So they want help. We don't. Yeah, we're not going to judge or really care with what the issues are. We just need to know.
Yeah.
Like
we have a dog right here on a bed stay, Axel.
Yeah.
And he had been through full training program. His owners described him as incredible, amazing right after he left the program. And then he stayed with a family friend and they felt like he completely reversed and that he was very reactive. And within like 2 weeks, this dog is completely back on track. He's excellent. He still has that foundation.
Yeah.
And he just needed like some guidance.
Yep.
And I'm happy to help them do that.
Right. And it's good. It's always, you can always tell the ones that have kind of gone through their training too, because they do just like.
Yes. And the first like follow up, they're like clean right back up.
Yep.
So it's not impossible.
Yeah. And that's another famous line that we hear all the time too, is like, oh, they do so well when they're here. It's like, because there's the standard, like it's because we haven't seen them in 6 months and allowed them to kind of do these things, so
and I don't have like the emotional relationship with your dog that you do, so I'm not in like this toxicity where I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I'm like, I need to help the person in this situation,
right?
So how can I help the dog,
right?
So I can help the person.
Yeah, like I'm sure if I gave you Sully for like 3 days, you'd be able to clean up everything I'm trying to do over the next couple weeks. But it's just because it's like
it's your situation.
The consistency in the situation that I'm in, and where it's just like it's just taking me a little bit longer. But it's like, it's not that I don't think Sully gets it. He definitely knows what I'm trying to work on. It's just the fact that I've allowed him to kind of push me a little bit, or push the boundaries a little bit with me, that it's taking him that extra second to be like, okay, I'll listen, Whereas like, I'm sure if you worked with him, he'd be like, all right, I get it. I'll listen to you, because there hasn't been that pushback, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of all we have to hit on.
Yeah. We want to hear about your examples of times that your dog has maybe pushed back on you.
Yeah.
And what solutions that you did to help fix that. Or if you're struggling, mention something in the comments and we can possibly read that and, help you out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have any of those questions, or if you know of a friend whose dog is kind of struggling or whatever, let us know. But all right. I think we'll leave you at that.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. Peace out.